it's only because a car has brakes that it can go faster. And so we're pushing out messages that show how far we as economies have come because of the improvements and developments that we as an industry have been able to make. And now we can see that because of the changes that we've made, we can now do almost impossible things.
I make a difference. When I leave, changes are being implemented. And I feel good knowing that they're putting safety first after they've talked with me based on OSHA compliance. So that's what I love about what I do.
The piece of advice he gave me in that conversation has stuck with me and has allowed for me to advance my career to where I am today, to be able to be a industry resource. Know what you don't know.
For your own safety, you are reminded to stand behind the yellow line.
Welcome to Safety Factor. My name is Ben Hangst, and today is Global Lifting Awareness Day. This is a day to share your experiences in the lifting industry as a career worth pursuing. Because it is Global Lifting Awareness Day, we are doing things a bit differently on the podcast, a two-parter. First, I'm joined again by the Lifting Equipment Engineers Association, or LEA CEO, Ross Maloney, to get a recap on last year's Global Lifting Awareness Day. Then, we'll be taking a deep dive into career advancement opportunities through industrial training with Mazzella Customer Trainer, JT Farley, and Industrial Training International Vice President of Sales, Amanda Long. Ross, thank you again for joining. So let's start with the basics. What is Global Lifting Awareness Day?
So Global Lifting Awareness Day is a chance for us as this incredible, diverse, important, unique, crazy industry to get together and actually talk about what we do. When you work in lifting, it's something that we all have in common, that when you're at a party or you're at a family reunion and somebody says to you, what do you do? And you start saying, I work in lifting. There's just like this aura of nervousness that you're going to talk for too long, or this recognition that they've got no idea what you're talking about. And that's like a thing that's universal across our industry and universal across the world, wherever you are. But it's described perfectly in the title. Ours is an industry that if it didn't operate smoothly, you would know about it because your life would be very different. You might not live in the apartment block that you live in because it wouldn't be there. You certainly wouldn't be wearing the clothes you are, eating the foods that you are, because they just would not be arriving. And then you can get into, would you be using the same energy that you're using? Would you be driving the same vehicle? Would you be holding the same phone to your ear? Your life would be fundamentally different. But also, if the things that we do routinely on a daily basis weren't done to the high quality standard that they are done, stuff would snap, stuff would hit the ground, people would be injured and or die. And so we're trying desperately to inject a bit of glamour and a bit of awareness into this incredible underpinning industry that is key to all of the supply chains that we're aware of, but it's delivered by a set of functions that few people think of.
So could you give us a bit of a recap of last year's Global Lifting Awareness Day?
Yeah, so Global Lifting Awareness Day is one of those things that if you Google it, you'll go and find it. So the penetration that we had across the globe was just outstanding, and we had partners, your side of the Atlantic, our side, right through to New Zealand, going all the way east for us. And one of the joys of this is that, yeah, sure, we as LEA, as a global trade association, are a key driver of it, but it's not ours, right? It's the industry's awareness day. And so we had member companies of the association pushing messages, and then we had other associations using it to launch things that they did. So the last year we were talking about challenges around recruitment. Engineering is one of those industries that government always worry about. They always see it as an opportunity to increase growth, et cetera, et cetera. It's a high value added sector. And last year we really went really heavy on young people come and work for us. See this as something that you can develop a career in. because so many times there are people that are looking for the next job. And our message last year was really about the pathway that is progression when you're working in lifting, when you're working at height, load lashing, restraint, etc. So last year was really a fundamental thing where we invited members to talk about career opportunities. And we saw loads of people put together really interesting content where they were talking about how they got into the industry, what they do on a daily basis, the places that they go, the people that they work with. And I thought some of the content, I mean, right, I'm going to be biased, but the content was fascinating and it was as diverse as we are.
So compared to last year, what are some of the goals of 2024 for this year's Global Lifting Awareness Day?
Our internal goals are the goals that we are talking about with our echo chamber. So with the industry, with people that know what we're talking about. And we're prioritizing three things. The three things that we're pushing are respect the product. And what we're saying there is that good quality product is available and bad quality product is available. And so we're encouraging our industry to remember that good quality product matters. We're also reminding the industry that inspection and examination really does matter. It's easy to get a little bit carried away and think that things hardly ever fail. Things hardly ever fail because we as an industry have got on top of inspection and examination. And so we're reminding people of the fundamental importance of mandatory, legal, but also best practice inspection. Our final point is that we are encouraging people to respect the experts and to respect the expertise. And so we're really encouraging the industry to remember that training, CPD, ongoing skills acquisition is fundamental, not just to what we do, but also to where we go in the future. And they feel like they are pretty straightforward and everybody will be like, yeah, get it. But some of it is the sort of thing that you don't want your industry to forget. The other side of it is we work in an industry where we talk about health and safety and risk mitigation and accident avoidance is one of those things that almost becomes a political debate. It can be seen as very big brother. It can be seen as big government. It can be seen as legislation going mad. And the argument we are making is that it's only because a car has brakes that it can go faster. And so we're pushing out messages that show how far we as economies have come because of the improvements and developments that we as an industry have been able to make. And so we're pushing out iconic images to show how far we've come. So the first image that we're pushing is a guy called Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who was recently voted as the second greatest ever British figure. And he was in many ways the father of the Industrial Revolution. He was the guy that really got into engineering, came up with innovative, huge scale projects that shaped the landscape of England. And he's one of these Victorian fellas in the big hat with the big cigarette. And the most iconic image of Brunel is when he's standing in front of just a huge chain. And it's chain at the launching of a ship. And it's one of these ships that really was fundamental to Britain having its a period of global dominance. And so that was in the 1800s. And you can see this old guy that dresses in a way that nobody ever dresses. And you just see the enormity of the engineering ambition. And then we go right through, and one of the later images that we talk about, we've got an image of the renovations that were at Tiffany in Manhattan, where our industry literally puts a crane on top of a building in the middle of one of the busiest, most populous, richest cities in the world, so that we can do these unbelievable engineering feats. And when you go back to the images that probably we all think of with the guys that are sitting on top of the steels in Manhattan, having their lunch, and their idea of safety is that they're wearing shoes. And now we can see that because of the changes that we've made, we can now do almost impossible things. We can do the sort of thing that Brunel would have just been a gog at. And so we're really pushing through this series of images and the video that we've put out that ours is an industry of evolution that leads to unbelievable progress. And so sometimes we have to do things that make sure that our people are safe, that can feel as if they're just getting in the way. But our argument is, because we get safer means we can go higher. Because we can go higher means we can go deeper, means we can go further into different climates, into really inclement places. And so we are really pushing hard on how proud we are that ours is an industry that has managed to marry together safety with innovation. We've not been hamstrung by looking after our people. Actually, we look after our number one asset, which is our people, our skills, et cetera, and we end up delivering unbelievable, remarkable, society-changing, lifestyle-enhancing solutions.
So how can individuals or companies participate in this year's Global Lifting Awareness Day today?
So we're encouraging individuals and members, organizations such as ourselves, members of them, or anyone else, just to post about how remarkable and wonderful our industry is. And there's a globalliftingawarenessday.com website where you can go and you can download some of the collateral that we've made, and you're more than happy to share that. But as much as possible, what we're trying to do is to really be the story that's out there. What will make a sign of success is when I get home and my wife and children tell me that they saw Leah and Global Lifting Awareness Day posting on Instagram or on LinkedIn. If we can reach non-users of lifting equipment, then we know that we've done something right.
Ross, thanks again for joining. Many people think of the rigging industry as a physically demanding career, blue-collar work, construction sites, mills, and factories. While riggers and crane operators are probably the most important part of this industry, the industry itself is bigger than just that. Today, we're going to look into the career advancement opportunities available through industrial training. Whether you're doing the rigging work, operating the crane, selling the equipment, engineering, or more, how can you advance your career through industrial training? I'm here with JT Farley, Mazzella Customer Trainer, and Amanda Long, ITI Vice President of Sales, and we're both going to talk a little bit about how you can advance your career through industrial training. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you for having us.
So this is Global Lifting Awareness Day, and people are encouraged to share their experiences with the industry. So could you both introduce yourself and tell us how you got into this industry? And then side question, what do you enjoy about working within the lifting industry?
Well, I'll be a gentleman. Ladies first. Please, Amanda.
Oh, thank you, JC. So I grew up around the lifting industry. So I've been around cranes and rigging activities my entire life. When my dad used to run the crane and rigging group at a local petrochem facility here, that's when you could still go to work with your parents, and I would sit under his desk and then go get in the crane. And, I've always just been exposed to them. And so my dad started a side business in training, and I had the opportunity to get a lot of exposure to the education side and the actual craft training piece. So I've really been in and around the lifting industry, more on the support side. On the education side is where most of my exposure has come in, and that's afforded me a lot of access to the actual activities going on in the field by either training them or seeing what our customers are doing. And, the second part of your question is I have such a passion for the need of the craft of crane and rigging, and I truly do feel that it is an art. So the critical thinking that goes into rigging activities and how you're tasking the men and women of the field to go out there and make decisions that affect people's lives, and the art that is needed to do that correctly, along with, the maneuvering of the machines, however big or small, they all have big impact. So I truly have a passion for the art of crane and rigging. And then the safety and training aspect is what brought my dad home every day. So I just want to be able to be a part of it.
JT, how about you?
I was dared.
You were dared.
I was actually dared, right? I know, right? It's like most Americans, I was a training manager for a company, and downsizing began to happen. And as that was taking place, I found myself looking. And one of my instructors came to me and they said, JT, why don't you change industries? with your skills, they could be used anywhere. I said, no, I don't think I want to change industries because I was comfortable where I was. And then a week after, she came to me and let me know that she wasn't taking the downsides because we were actually being placed in other positions and so forth. So I took, a step back. She said she wasn't, and then she dared me. She said, JT, I dare you to step outside this industry. And here I am today. So, yeah, definitely. Here I am coming up on a year in a couple of weeks with Mazzella Companies. And it's been a wonderful ride. I'm learning a lot from just everyone that I talk to. And the thing that I love about what I do, and I side with Amanda, and she said passion, and I have my own 3 Ps. Mine is people, purpose, and passion. I love people. I enjoy being in front of people. And the blessing about what I do for Mazzella is I make a difference. When I leave, changes are being implemented. And I feel good knowing that they're putting safety first after they've talked with me based on OSHA compliance. So that's what I love about what I do.
So can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the industrial training programs that Mazzella offers and ITI offers?
I'll start there, then I'll pass it to you, Amanda.
Sounds great.
Because with the collaboration with ITI, on the Mazzella side of the house, we offer basic rigging, we offer signal person, we offer overhead crane operations, as well as fall protection. If it goes beyond that, if it exceeds Mazzella capabilities, our partnership with ITI allows us to hand off to them for more, I guess you could say, more elaborate training and so forth. And Amanda, I'll let you speak in that regard.
Yeah, so we really span the lifting discipline across many different training delivery methods and modalities and skill levels. So everything from the basic rigging that powers Mazzella's training arm to lift director and rigging engineering programs and everything in between. We break our products down, our education products down into 3 discipline categories, and that's going to be rigging, mobile and overhead cranes, and then lift planning and management. And whether it's VR crane simulation or instructor-led training or online learning, and however they're consuming that content, it really is bucketed into those 3 main categories. And it really, we like to make sure that when possible, the students are being educated in the way that they're consuming information best, and making sure that we've got the right content supporting it. So as you can imagine, our Master Rigger course, which is a pretty rigorous 50% hands-on, 50% classroom, learn it, do it, your theory in the classroom, applying it in the shop or in the field, is those hands-on concepts are best cemented in an instructor-led training delivery method. Whereas we have some of the classroom theory portions available throughout different online content. So it really spans from a very basic, you want to be a helper, you want to get exposure, all the way up to lift directors and rigging engineers and everybody in between. And we really focus, so much of how we began 40 plus years ago in the Mazzella Companies, and the founding family, the Parnells of ITI, have known each other for a very long time and had this partnership and relationship. And we're always evolving with the industry so that we can continue to educate through all the different delivery methods.
So what are some key skills, and Amanda, this is more for you since ITI offers certifications. Mm-hmm. So what are some key skills and certifications that are crucial for career advancement in the lifting industry? And then how do your training programs help people acquire these skills?
That's a great question, Ben. And what's interesting is in the training industry, ITI, along with other organizations that provide similar training, have an area of training or a category of training that's really tailored to be successful on the nationally accredited certification exams. So they're probably coined term a prep course, much like an SAT prep course. A lot of those topics are not something that's everyday conversation in the field for your crane operators. So they're not saying, hey, buddy, before we go hoist personnel, be sure you tell me what the OSHA regulation is to hoist personnel. So we're really sure that we're educating to make sure that they're successful on the domains that the nationally accredited body puts out there. That's very similar to other things that you will find in the training industry. Now, when you look at the training programs, I really like to break it up into prep courses and skills building. So things, even, what Mazzella is doing on basic rigging is they're educating them on how to go out and do that level of rigging more knowledgeably, safer, more effectively. Then you come over to the ITI side and do intermediate rigger and master rigger, and just using rigging kind of as an example. There's opportunities throughout that skills building process where you can be successful on the CCO certifications. So, when available, we would build out a learning progression that says, hey guys, once you've completed this intermediate rigger, you're a great candidate based on the experience that you have to be able to go out and obtain certification. So we have the skills building side where we really focus on the craft skills necessary. And then we have the certification, the prep course side. As a byproduct on the prep course side, they're always going to walk away with more skills. The domains cover a broad range of topics within the industry. So they're always walking away more educated. But the purpose of those is that we can help them be successful on the certification exams. Probably the last piece of your question that's important is that not all certifications are required throughout our industry. So when we look at how OSHA designates and classifies the workforce, it's in general industry and then in construction. And in construction, when you're doing construction activities or you're falling under the construction standard, that is when crane operators must be certified by an ANSI accredited third-party certification body. Outside of that, it's not required. And so that's where we do a lot of consulting. The Mazzella team, the ITI team, we do a lot of consulting of understanding what type of environment are you working in? What type of activities are you doing? Who are you working for? Like a lot of our contracting workforce, if they're going to go into an organization, especially here in the Gulf, I'm in Houston, a lot of our owner companies require certification to come on site, regardless of activity. So we want to help make sure that they're prepared to go out and perform work and don't get stopped because of a lack of a training or a lack of a credential.
So speaking of those requirements, what are some of the OSHA requirements for training? I'm sure that a lot of people out there don't know that there are OSHA requirements for lifting and rigging training.
Yes. And training is a really great way to look at it because, certification is a bit of a buzzword, right? And the only time we really want to look at required certification, because organizations will have their own policies and will need to help, contractors or those employees and managers adhere to those. But when we look at training, OSHA and ASME are going to require that all personnel performing lifting and rigging activities are trained and evaluated before they're turned loose to go do that activity. So we spend a lot of time educating our customers that we need to make sure that they have the training, and it doesn't always have to be formal. It doesn't always have to be ITI training or Mazzella training. It can be on the job training. And we always will help them make sure that they're documenting in a way that mitigates risk for the employee and the employer, and that they've got some sort of education, formal or informal, on the activities that they're being tasked to do that by that employer, and that before they're turned loose to go do whatever that activity is, operating a crane, rigging a certain complex load, however big or small or simple or complex, that they are evaluated against those activities and that they have the knowledge, training, experience, credentialing, whatever it is that says, yes, this person should go do that. That way our managers can go to sleep at night and our people can go home at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's a good thing you said it that way too, Amanda, because you're right. Certification is a buzzword out in the industry, but the main topic in which you said is training. They do need to be trained, whether formal, whether informal. But before you let loose on a crane or rigging and so forth, you should have some type of proper training, whether it's through Mazzella, ITI, or hands-on.
The key thing that you said there was documented, like you need to document that someone is competent, qualified to handle the equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where we run into, processes evolve, organizations evolve, but you still find a lot of organizations that have paper in the break room and it gets filed into a file and it doesn't make it back to the individual personnel record.
Yes.
And heaven forbid, should you need it, it really needs to carry that trail of why is the organization saying that Ben can go do this thing, And so it's really important when we look at how we serve customers, both Mazzella and ITI take a risk mitigation standpoint. How can we mitigate the risk for the person doing the activity
Yes.
and the employer? And provide them the proper tools, the proper support, the proper education so that they can go do that.
And that's one of the difference makers I was talking about earlier, because just like Amanda is saying, those are the things that I talk about when I am on site, when I am with the client, of documentation beats conversation all the time. Let's get a record in place, because I am in places where that's not happening. But now they're making those type of changes. And that's the thing that I like to see, or the difference making. So I appreciate what you're saying on that as well, Amanda.
So what does a Mazzella training look like, and what does an ITI training look like?
They are the same.
Yeah.
Because ITI trained us. No, let me stop. Not exactly the same, but we do use the ITI curriculum. ITI has put together a robust package that I think is phenomenal, that has the OSHA compliance inside of it, so that the client, when they go through it, they know they're prepared for if OSHA does have to come out. They have the certifications or the attendance certificates letting them know that their employee has been trained. And when it comes to the handoff, it's a seamless handoff to ITI. It's a constant collaboration, because even once it's given to ITI, they keep us in the loop. They let the account manager know what's going on, and they're able to babysit it all the way into completion.
We represent ourselves and we have a very exciting and wonderful partnership with Mazzella, but we really are the training arm. And whether we're powering the internal training, like JT said, through the curriculum, or those customers are coming to us for a higher level or a more hands-on approach or the certification, it is a seamless experience. So our technical director, Jason Doyle, came out and did a very extensive train the trainer to make sure that those customers that we serve within the industry don't see the difference in the delivery of as we progress from basic, and I'm just using rigging as an example, but from basic rigging to intermediate to master, or from their overhead crane operator to inspector to technician. So there's a lot of progression that happens, but it's a seamless experience for the student.
So how can you leverage industrial training opportunities for your career growth?
Oh, that's a great question. So, there's a lot of really great support organizations out there for building craftsmen's resumes. Coming to training courses, whether they be open enrollment or through a previous employer, it's really important to put on there that formal training piece that they've received, because they might, whether that qualification transfers from company A to company B is not what company B is after. They want to know that they've had that formal education piece, they've had the exposure. So being able to put those on there at whatever level it is, again, from helper all the way up to, the lift director, it's really powerful to be able to put some of those courses on their resume.
Yes.
With certificates of completion and attendance and even online stuff. I have taken the initiative to go out and educate myself or this organization I previously worked for educated me in this subject matter. It's a very powerful tool when they're going out to look and advance their career.
Yes. And this industry is going nowhere, Ben. I mean, the more you know, the more you grow, right? So the sky is really the limit for the lifelong learner. And the more education they get, the higher they can go in this industry. So 100% on board with what you're saying about that, Amanda. The more training you get, the higher you can go.
Yeah. And I think that employers look for that quality. I know at Mazzella, we specifically hire to that quality. Are you a lifelong learner? Are you someone who wants to continually grow as an employee, as a person? So how can different companies get involved in some of these different training programs? What's the process?
So ITI has training centers, but through the Mazzella partnership, we actually have 2 of our 6 training centers are at Mazzella facilities. So at any of our training centers, any Mazzella or ITI customer or anybody off the street just really looking to understand the way that we go about educating people can get into open enrollment courses. So that's where we can serve the organization that doesn't have 12 people to train at one time or can't afford to take 6 guys out of the field at one time. We can go and put, onesie twosies into a training center course at any one of the 6 locations. And the 2 Mazzella ones being the Florida and the Cleveland facility, we have a high concentration of customers around there. So they find it really easy. And, as we have scheduled courses all throughout the year, so they can put anybody into open enrollment courses, or what can be more cost effective as you get to the higher number of people, 8, 10, 12, 6 people, just kind of depending on the course.
Sure.
We can come out to the client locations, and I can let, JT speak to the volume of coming to customer organizations work versus utilizing training center. But ours is most of our instructors, all of our instructors around the U.S. and Canada are at client locations week of week.
And we're definitely very flexible. Website, phone call, account manager, even word of mouth. You can get in touch with us if training is necessary. We can come to you, or you can come to one of our facilities. I was just out at a company. They heard about me from another company. Word of mouth. No problem. I'm there next week. Let's get your basic rigging training done.
Yep. And JT, I know you're all over the country all the time, right?
Yes. It keep me hopping, definitely.
Even if, somebody listening to the podcast is a longtime Mazzella customer contacting your Mazzella account manager,
yes,
and the course is, an intermediate rigger, a master rigger, lift director, that comes directly to ITI for the delivery of it, but managed by your familiar account manager. So it's a really cool partnership for the customer because it's very seamless for them.
So I assume that normally the people that are coming to you guys for these trainings are going to be companies looking for compliance. But let's say you're an individual in a company. How could they advocate for themselves to push a company to give them additional training and help them gain new competencies?
I would say, well, first of all, knowing your rights, right, as an employee, and the responsibilities of the employer, right? Per OSHA, the employer is responsible for training their employees and making sure it's a safe work environment. So in that aspect, I would say it would be more of asking, right? Going to your supervisor and asking for the type of training you would like or the type of training that's necessary is one way of doing it. When I am out at a client's office, I do get that question a lot, Ben, and I talk with them about that as well. Now that you see your company is investing in your training with me being here, you now can go to them for more. We talk about seat time and things like that in hours. Just because you've gone through overhead operations training with me, if you don't still feel comfortable or confident and competent, go with your supervisor. They know that I've already directed you to do that, and you can get more training that way.
And encouraging the individual to really take to some familiar organizations that they have, to the internet, to just really look at what are the options when it comes to training a higher skill in their career progression. So if they're starting, especially like in the manufacturing environment, there's a lot of opportunity for cross-pollinating skills, to be able to go, what sort of skill do I need to go from the beam mill to the melt shop, just using, some steel industry locations within one plant facility. There's a lot of opportunity to look at what skill do I need to advance or go somewhere else with maybe a different pay rate, or to move up within an organization. Just looking at some of the education resources that are available to individuals, I would encourage them to seek it out. And there's kind of going back to my first answer about how I got here is my dad. Mm-hmm. My dad started 50-something years ago in the union here, which is a great way to get experience and be educated at the local here out of the Houston area, from helper to rigger to crane operator to now he's been the lifting technical authority for all of BP Americas, and is now a lifting authority for a Italian petroleum company, right? So it's just that if they have the desire to grow within their discipline, there are so many tools and resources out there.
Yes,
to
it
get
is.
That formal education piece is so small. What we do is so small in what they need to learn, and then they go in the field and apply the right skills, then they can just keep growing.
So what advice would you give someone who's new to the lifting industry, who's looking to advance in their career? Where should they start?
Me personally, because I'm new to it, and I know you're chomping at the bit, Amanda. I'm going to give it back to you in 1 second. But I look at ordinal direction learning. I look at north, south, east, and west, right? From Katie to Kayla to Tom and Tony to Amanda and Jason. And I just became a whirlwind in that compass of learning from those people and everyone within there. So apprising yourself to the information, exposing yourself, making new friends, and asking questions. And it's helped building not only my character, but help building my knowledge with basic rigging. Then along with, like I was saying with Jason, and Amanda talked about him earlier, who did our basic rigging training class. Amanda being, she's getting back to me within 24 hours, right? She's a very busy woman, VP of sales, but she has no problem shooting an email and giving me answers. Tony, our CEO and so forth, open door policy. So that's would be my advice, don't be an island. Make yourself available to people and ask questions.
What I would encourage somebody, if they said, what's the right way to really make sure that I create the foundation that I need to grow the way I want to grow and achieve the amount of success that I'm going for? It would be to really, really be willing to dig in at the foundational level of crane and rigging. So, if it's a 45-year-old man who's looking to change careers, because there is so much opportunity to support yourself, support extended family within the lifting industry, to really be willing to learn that entry level or foundation level knowledge. So not necessarily saying you need to all start out as helpers, but to really take on that mindset of learning from the retiree workforce and saying, why do you do that? Asking questions. Why is that a best practice? Where did that come from? What could happen if I don't? And really understanding that foundational knowledge, get that formal training knowledge, that foundation laid, start in a position that's going to grow your knowledge organically as you expose yourself to the people JT's talking about. So just asking questions to the people around you. And it's very different, right? Like you've got a heavy lift company, maybe a crane rental company. You're on the dock, or you're in a manufacturing setting, or in a refinery. There's so many different environments that are going to offer people to you that have different levels of expertise when it comes to lifting. So I would encourage people to ask a lot of whys. Why are we doing this? How can I apply it? How can I grow? And then they might see the the skill set that they want to really hone in on. And maybe it's crane operation, right? That's a very beautiful art that there's a lot of area for advancement in. You know, you can go to run, you know, a very critical piece in the manufacturing process, like in a melt shop, or you could go run a heavy lift crane and, you know, make some of the most amazing lifts that people see in the world. So there's just so much room for opportunity, but I would encourage an individual to say, why are we doing this? How can I learn more and gather from people and from the training industry on those subjects?
And even the mentor-mentee goes a long way as well. Bob Gabanich, Matt Young took me under their wing and really shared a lot with me and showed a lot to me. So I think that's another way advice I would give, you know, look for someone to mentor you. We all should be growing and should always be looking up to someone. So I would go that route as well.
And I'm going to give my own piece of advice. So I've been in this industry for a few years now, and read the standards. They're boring. No one likes reading them.
Right.
Like, nobody does. But if you know the rules, it doesn't matter if you're in the sales side of the business, if you're working in the office, if you're in the field, if you know the rules, you're going to feel comfortable talking about them and talking about what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And just, there's so much information in those standards. If you pull out a highlighter and you go through them and you read them whenever you need to look something up,
sure,
you're gonna learn a lot.
I just thought of something else to add there, Ben. I guess a little bit of my entry into the training space was I started helping my dad at his crane rigging training company, and that's evolved to where I am today. And I was sitting in on a lot of classes, and at the time he had to go out to an incident, and there was a class scheduled the next day. And so he said, ready or not? And I'm like, well, or not is the answer, but okay. And the piece of advice he gave me in that conversation has stuck with me and has allowed for me to advance my career to where I am today, to be able to be a industry resource, is know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I spent the first 2 years of my training career, and I spent about 7 directly training almost every day of the year. But I spent the first 2 years of that creating a parking lot of questions that I did not know the answer to. So whether I was calling on an industry resource or looking through regulations and standards on a break to give them the answer, I was able to educate myself. So you made me think of it, Ben, when you said reading the regulations and standards. Our industry experts wrote those for a reason. And there are so many answers in there that if you just take some curiosity, make sure you're curious about the answer and the why, dig in, flag it, highlight it, read around it. You know, what is this? What is this there for? Mm-hmm. That's how I figured out the answers to all the stuff I didn't know. And as I've gone, I still know what I don't know. It's, for a new person out there trying to prove skills within a job, I can't encourage that enough to raise your hand and say, I don't know how to do this right. I don't know why. Yeah. And there's going to be people there to help you, or your employer, or whatever it is. Just know what you don't know. And there's educational resources out there. I would just encourage anybody, whether it's a manager, individual, somebody who's a CEO of a organization that has lifting in it, to really embrace the activity for the art that it is. It is not as simple as pushing buttons on a pendant control. It is not as simple as reading a tag and putting a sling on a load. It takes expertise. It takes art. It takes critical thinking. And it's so important to educate the individual or your employees so that we can keep people safe. If you look at across the globe of the Fortune 100 or 500 companies that have lifting and rigging in their activities, it is always at the highest risk category. So there's so many things that can happen, and we have mitigated against so many of those over the years, but it still happens today. So the more we can educate ourselves, the more passionate people we can get in the industry, the better everybody's going to be.
Thanks, JT. Thanks, Amanda, for joining. So,
Thank you,
Amanda,
Ben.
how can people get a hold of you?
ITI.com is a great place. Myself specifically, Amanda at ITI.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody. We have a great team, great people, great partners like Mazzella, wonderful facilities and training centers across the board. But, we really want to make sure that we're the right fit for individuals and organizations as we engage with them. So we just love to talk to you, see where you're at, and see how we might be able to help.
So you can get a hold of myself, JT, or any of Mazzella's experts at mazzellacompanies.com. Don't forget to pop into our Learning Center. We have a ton of training videos there. We have articles. We have articles explaining the ASME standards. You can listen to Safety Factor wherever you listen to your podcast, or you can watch it on the Lifting and Rigging channel on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there.